Hi, everyone. Excuse me. Today, I will be discussing the Psychoeducational Assessment Instrument, the Wechsler's Intelligence Scale for Children, 5th edition. The Wechsler's Intelligence Scale for Children, 5th edition, is an intelligence test that measures a child's intellectual ability in 5 cognitive domains that impact performance. The assessment results provide insight into the examinee's cognitive abilities and intellect. This instrument is used for children from the ages of 6 to 16 years of age. There are 10 primary subtests and 6 secondary subtests that work together for a broad indication of intellectual function. While this assessment is widely used by school districts and psychologists, there are some qualities that need to be examined before utilizing this assessment instrument. In order to make a decent determination of efficacy, first, the technical adequacy of the assessment needs to be explored. Next, an in-depth look at the bias status of the instrument should be investigated. And lastly, the purpose of the test should be probed before any decisions are made. To determine if the psychoeducational assessment instrument, the WISC 5th edition, is a good candidate to test students, the technical adequacy, bias status, and purpose of the test must be explored. Technical adequacy. The technical adequacy of the WISC 5 is determined by its validity and reliability. Validity of an assessment is whether an assessment instrument results can be used for what it is intended to measure. The validity of the WISC-V is based on the content, internal structure, and the assessment, and it was found to have good construct validity. The reliability is based on internal consistency, test-retest stability, and interscorer agreement. The split half method was used to determine internal consistency and was found to be generally high reliability. Since both the validity and reliability are in the good to high range, this assessment would be a good assessment to provide the results it claims to furnish. With that being said, technical adequacy is not the only factor necessary to decide if the assessment is a good choice. The bias status of the assessment also needs to be explored. Bias status. The bias status of an assessment is whether or not a test is offensive or unfair to one's personal characteristics, such as race, religion, gender, or economic status. The statistical detection of item bias makes use of differential item functioning procedures, the DIF. Sadly, the WISC-V has been found to be biased against African American students. The main reason for this bias is due to some of the African American students' poverty levels, lack of exposure or opportunity, and political and or social injustices. African American students are prevented from exhibiting their skills because of unnecessary barriers in the administration of the test procedure. In addition to identifying any biases in the assessment, it is imperative to know what the assessment is supposed to identify. Purpose of the test. The purpose of the WISC-V is to measure intellectual ability of children from ages 6 to 16. This assessment provides composite scores that indicate strengths and weaknesses in the student's cognitive abilities. A school psychologist or educational diagnostician can use the results of the assessment's 16 subtests and receive a broad representation of the student's intellectual functioning across specific domains. This assessment has an increased interpretation ability and is more logical than earlier versions. For this reason, For this reason, the WISC appears to be a good choice for assessment of students. Final decision. In conclusion, after a thorough, in-depth look at the WISC-B's technical adequacy, bias status, and its purpose, it appears to be an acceptable assessment instrument for non-minority students only. Based on the bias status findings for minority students, mainly African Americans, it does not provide accurate results for those students who are on the lower rungs of the socioeconomic ladder or those who haven't had the opportunity to be exposed to a wide range of experiences. These biases preclude this assessment from providing accurate results for African American students, as well as other minorities. The school psychologist or educational diagnostician is qualified to determine which assessment is best for each individual student. Thank you for listening.